Oh yeah, I have recorded. Hold on.
Oh, it's okay. I am recording now. I will make you host now. Then you can start presenting. Sorry about
Okay.
that, everyone. Okay, let me. So, okay, you are host now. Now you can start presenting. I'm recording in my PC now.
All right.
Go ahead,
And
Sai.
can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So, all right. So we are going to talk about Procurement Command Center today. Uh, uh, the way I've structured this presentation is I'll give you a short introduction on why we are doing this and talk about the solution overview. This I hope to complete in about 10-15 minutes maybe, and spend a significant time on the demo. Then talk about the value prop, and then we can get into the Q&A session. So starting with the introduction, essentially one of the things that we are very mindful of is the future of where the businesses are going. And the old way of thinking is that procurement is a support department or a support function within the business, and it sort of ensures that people get what they need in terms of the people who are primarily running the business, which are sales, marketing, production, distribution, etc. And the primary focus at that time have been to save costs, but then we are looking at the future where procurement needs to be part of a central set of team all aligned towards customer success. So everybody needs to work towards offering differentiated solutions, uh, so we can be successful in our business, and the only way that can be done is by making our customers successful. So essentially, along with all the other teams, procurement team also will have a mandate to deliver differentiated solutions to make our customers successful. And the way we do that is by partnering with suppliers, using their expertise and coming up with innovative solutions, either in terms of supply chain or in terms of new components or in terms of just making business smoother through indirect procurement. So that's one thing we have a focus. And while we have that high level strategy, we are also looking at several challenges that are that are the main focus of any procurement team today. Some of them would be the existing non-catalog request flow, which is quite impractical. We cannot eliminate it, but we need to ensure that we reduce these non-catalog requests to make operations smoother. Business demands quickly turn around. There are changes happening in business, and procurement has to be on their toes to meet these changing business needs. Past purchases, looking at the history of past purchases is very difficult in terms of trying to make decisions, and we depend quite a lot on the expertise of the buyer. That's one. Supplier selection is based on past experience, but it's not based on an objective criteria in terms of performance recently. The other problem is that we don't know what documents are getting affected. Are there late deliveries? Are there quality issues? Where are these issues happening? And how can I quickly take contingency actions? I am monitoring all the different documents, but I'm going to take a long time to figure out where the problem lies. So these are some of the challenges that we want to address. The other challenge is again based on efficiency. A lot of customers are still focusing on efficiency of buyers, and they are bogged down today with a lot of non-value added transactional activities. What we want to do is to make it much easier to manage these transactional activities by eliminating, automating, or making it easier to take these decisions, and let the buyer spend more time on strategic activities about supplier partnerships, or trying to figure out the right set of agreements, or trying to figure out where the business is moving and how do we realign procurement towards the new business. So how do we do this? We do this with a lot of our digital assets in terms of supplier information, purchasing data, We are introducing reviews and feedback into iProcurement, and we have a lot of financial data. What we want to do is to bring all that together and leverage this data in order to provide the right set of insights and give 360-degree visibility to the procurement team in order to improve decision making across the board. So what we aim to do is for the procurement team at all levels, from tactical to operational to strategic, we want to provide the necessary tools to handle exceptions quickly, plan, collaborate with the other departments with whom they're working, and align their decisions to business needs. And we do this by providing 360-degree visibility and insights, a visual way of prioritizing tasks, and all the alerts and actions that he needs to be able to quickly figure out where the problems are before it affects business and solve them. So the solution overview. What we have is a big plan for Procurement Command Center. Essentially, at the center, we have the operations management dashboard, and that dashboard is going to, the aim of the dashboard is to be able to allow the buyer to proactively resolve issues before they impact business and manage the workload effectively from across the board. It gives 360-degree visibility across all the documents and transactions. Now, on top are several entities. These might not be dashboards on their own, but they essentially allow the buyer to collaborate effectively or listen into what the customer is saying. By customer, for indirect procurement, it's internal employees. For direct procurement, it could be end customers or the entire supply chain. So for indirect procurement, we have a dashboard that aims to allow buyers to have catalogs that are tailored to meet requesters' needs. So we have a dashboard that will help the buyer clean up the catalog, keep it up to date all the time. We want to have capabilities for service management in terms of contingent labor to ensure high quality workforce is available to all contractor requests. Improve direct procurement by leveraging supplier partnerships. Have a supplier relationship dashboard where we have now, through SLM, automated the qualification and onboarding processes and also evaluation processes. We need a better way to manage how long each of these processes are taking and where we need to streamline. So on the supplier management side, we are looking at an improved contract management dashboard using Endeca. And for sourcing, there are a lot of initiatives in terms of improved contract negotiation. We also have supplier and item analysis, which some of you might be aware of from project procurement, and strategic initiatives, which are like sourcing projects through which the CPO can initiate new initiatives for the team and get some strategic goals set and achieved through these initiatives. So what we have done now in the current release, which is V6, is to touch upon indirect procurement, direct procurement, the operations dashboard, and we are using supplier and item analysis. We are going to improve them in the future releases, and we are also going to add the other capabilities that we have in this plan. So that's the future. Now, before I get into the demo, I just want to talk for a few minutes about each of these dashboards. We have a dashboard for indirect procurement management, and essentially this through an outside-in approach, which means that our activity should be focused on what our customers want, and for indirect procurement, it's the employees. At this time, we don't have any ability to listen to what the requesters are thinking about our catalogs or what they're really needing, and it has to happen through some unstructured communication through email, and that's not a way to collaborate. So what we are bringing in are reviews and ratings into indirect procurement. That's a big enhancement into V6 on the indirect on the iProcurement for Endeca extension. The requesters can also offer suggestions, to improve sources of supply or to improve the catalog. And Through the operations dashboard, the buyer can monitor all of these reviews, ratings, and also cater to the feedback coming in, and also review of contract spending, including from I expenses, to identify opportunities to increase contracted spend. So essentially, look at I expenses, see if some of them should have been going through procurement, and see why that's not happening and fix that. We are using a lot of interesting charts, especially bubble charts, to uh, give a visual representation of where we are and where we should be. Um, this is one example where on the x-axis we are plotting the percentage of off-contract spend as a ratio of overall spend. So the higher we are on this x-axis, the worse the situation is. On the y-axis is non-PO spend as an overall procurement spend. By non-PO spend, at this point of time, we are pulling in I expense spend, but customers can expand it to whichever data they'd want to use. And even here, if your non-PO spend is high as a ratio of the overall spend, which means that we have a problem. So we use bubbles to, for each cost center or department, and we are supposed to be on the bottom left to ensure that the influence of procurement is high on the overall spend of the company. So that's one chart. So now jumping towards the operations dashboard, this is another dashboard that we are bringing in. Essentially, the dashboard is aimed at providing 360-degree visibility to all procurement documents, allow the buyer to prioritize work, discover and resolve problems, take corrective actions on exceptions before business is affected. We have powerful insights for decision making. And of course, the biggest of all, even if this is not what we would really want to highlight directly, is searching across documents. The existing buyer work center is good, but it's very difficult to figure out, okay, I have these four requisitions, which are the POs that have been created for these four requisitions, or going back and forth across all the documents which are in the life cycle. We have made it dead easy using this dashboard. So one other example of a bubble chart that we have used is for agreement utilization. Whenever we are going to take a decision on an agreement, what we need to do, should we extend the agreement? Should we terminate it? Should we continue it or renegotiate it? One of the significant questions that come up is, how is the business using these agreements? And over the life cycle, the utilization can be plotted, across the whole spectrum. So when it's early in the life cycle, which means, if the agreement has just been active here and the agreement is going to be terminated here, if there is a planned termination date. If we are somewhere over the left, which means that it's still early, there can be a lot of variances in utilization. But then over a period of time, it sort of settles down. And if you would, whether it's overutilized or underutilized, you might want to renegotiate and figure out how much the agreed amount should be on this one. And while we are towards the termination, we should aim to get these bubbles right at the center. Otherwise, we are either overpaying the supplier because we have underutilized this agreement and used, or underutilized the supplier's capacity, or we have overutilized it, which means that we have essentially taxed the supplier to supply more than what we did, which means we have not planned our agreements well. So this is one chart that we believe will be quite useful for customers to visualize where the agreements are in their life cycle. Of course, item and supplier analysis, some of you are aware of these analysis pages. Essentially, we use them to figure out if we have the right item, what is the risk of ordering this item. And the supplier analysis is aimed primarily at figuring out who the right supplier is based on my business priorities. For this, we use the extended supplier profile from Supplier Lifecycle Management or Supplier Hub, extract the UDA content and present the UDA content here. So you could use any information that we store on the supplier profile to figure out, drill down onto the best set of suppliers to suit our needs. So we now have spent enough time giving an overview. I'd want to jump into the demos. I have 4 demos to go in to explain different situations. I don't have really time to walk through the entire dashboards, and through these demos, I will only be able to demonstrate maybe 10% of the overall set of capabilities. And I hope when you get your hands on this, you could try it out, think of more scenarios, and then use that when demoing this to customers. So starting off, the first demo I would want to show you is how exactly the buyer can take advantage of reviews and ratings that is getting from requesters, and use that to essentially refine the catalog or improve the quality of service or expectations that we have set for requesters. So let's see this. The way we have structured it is I'm actually on the Buyer Work Center. We have a new tab called Dashboard. Underneath we have Procurement Operations, Items, Supplier Analysis, and Indirect Procurement. These are the 4 dashboards that we have in V6. So let's start with the reviews and rating systems that we have, which comes in for Indirect Procurement Dashboard. Just as an introduction, the reviews and ratings are something that the employees can submit on requisitions that they have entered into, the requisitions they have put in. Once they receive the material, they are given with the facility to enter a review and rating, and the buyer can look at a summary of the reviews, ratings, and see what can be done in terms of improving customer satisfaction. So at this time, I see that the average supplier rating out of 5 is 3.48. That's an area of concern. I'd want to look at what's happening. And I see a bubble chart here that essentially plots the average rating for each category. And I aim to be at the top right corner, which means that both for the item that they have purchased, items or service, and for the supplier in terms of how they have serviced the customer, which is our employee, they are being rated highly. What I'm concerned about at this point of time is this bubble where the supplier rating is sort of mediocre at around 2.5. So this is the translation services. So let's see what's happening with translation services. So when I drill down, the chart automatically shifts towards showing different suppliers, how they are performing within this particular category. There's one supplier who's the contract writers group who do well, and there are other suppliers. There is this language experts who have not been doing well. So we use these translation services to translate contracts that we write when we deal with suppliers across the world, and when we are trying to negotiate contracts, timely service is critical for our needs. But apparently, people are not happy with this particular supplier. Let me go check what's happening. There are several reviews that we have received. Some reviews are on the item and some on the supplier. For the item, folks are saying it's good value for money, great service, awesome. And for supplier, in terms of they're talking about slow performance, poor service, they're not very responsive. So what is this about? It probably means that the quality of their translation is brilliant, but they're taking just too long to turn in their translation. So what I would want to do is I would want to look at the agreement that we have for this particular supplier. So there is just one agreement line, and there is what I would want to do is to really contact the strategic buyer who owns this agreement and let him know that we seem to have a problem. What I would want to do for that is to create an action item. This is a new entity that we are bringing in, and we are going to use this to collaborate within the procurement team, in terms of communicating better within the team. So what I would want to do is to create an action item against this agreement line and give it to the owner of the agreement so that he can go have a chat with the supplier and understand what's happening. Just for the sake of this demo, because I don't want to run an ETL, I already created this particular action item, and I said check with the supplier why the deliveries are getting delayed, why are they turning in their translations too slow, and I've assigned it to the owner of the particular agreement. So I return back, and let's say I come back in as the owner of the agreement, and my primary place is the procurement dashboard. Uh, so I could essentially log out and log in, but I'm just sort of coming in directly here. So on my operations dashboard, this dashboard gives me a 360-degree view of all my documents, requisitions, orders, negotiations, action items. And I have various matrices to tell me where things are going, and also wherever there are exceptions like urgent requisitions, orders on hold. It gives me immediate access to those so I can quickly drill down and figure out what problems we have. I have some action items here that I can take a look at. So let me figure out what action items I have. I am Casey Brown, so I come in. And let me look at this particular action item for the agreement line. So there's one action item that says I have to contact the supplier for something. Let me take a look at what it is. So check with supplier why the deliveries are getting delayed, and I could essentially go back and look at individual reviews and ratings. But what I would want to do is to just give a phone call to the supplier and figure out what's really going wrong. So essentially, when all this happens outside the system or through a supplier portal, where I go and contact the supplier, and what I get to know is that they have some capacity issues happening, and they would want a longer lead time for a short while of 3 months. So what I would do is I would look at the particular agreement that this particular action item is talking about. So this agreement is being underutilized. It's in the middle of the life cycle, and I believe the problem is because of the delay in terms of deliveries. Requesters are looking at the other reviews and saying, okay, let's not go with this particular supplier. I talked to the supplier and figured out that the problem is going to be because of capacity constraints, and they cannot meet the lead times that the requesters are expecting right now. So what I will do is I will go to the agreement. So here I can see all the details about the agreement, what is the effective dates and the revisions, and how the agreement is being utilized. And the lead time is 5 days. So what I need to do is I will go to the action, and I'll view the agreement. So this takes me to the familiar agreement page, from where I can actually go and update the agreement, and immediately the lead time would reflect what the supplier is asking for is a higher lead time of about 15 days for the next 3 months. So I could quickly go and update the line. Set the lead time to 15 days and apply. And we are good to go. So what I will do is, I should essentially save that. And once I do that, I can come back, go back to the action item, and Okay. I can close that particular action item and create a new one saying that I need to review this particular action item again in 3 months' time. So that way, what I have done is I looked at a review where people are talking about a bad performance, identified the issue with the supplier, fixed the lead time. So now the expectations are set correctly. And after the 3-4 weeks of capacity constraints, I flip back the lead time so that the supplier can be back and be able to supply the translation services within a period of 3 to 4 weeks within the 5-day period. So now coming back, I go to the second demo, which is to dispose of urgent requisitions more effectively. This is a demo that shows how we have essentially improved requisition disposition flows through our dashboard. So let me pick the currency. This is most of our charts are driven through currencies. So this is essentially, we have a status chart for the requisition lines, and I can use this to figure out which requisitions I should work on right now. And there are various ways to prioritize these. Now I've done that using need by date, and it shows requisitions across the life cycle. What I see here is there are urgent requisitions that are in pool, so I should look at that. I also have a exception here that there are 4 urgent requisitions. Let me look at what this urgent requisition is about. So there is one that with a need by date within May 2015, there's not much time to take care of this. Let me look at that particular requisition. So I can see the requisition here. It's essentially about a repair service that the requester is asking for. Let me look at the line. So what they want is they seem to have a damaged crane, and they are on a project and they need this crane fixed right away, and they're looking for a repair estimate on this one. So we have different suppliers that can give an estimate and actually get the crane repaired, but I do not know which one I should go for that's right for this particular situation where the things are urgent. So what I do is I click on Analyze Supplier and go to the Supplier Analysis dashboard. So what this page is now doing is it's looking at the description and category, applying those filters, and what I see is there are no suppliers that supply me the exact description and category. Let me take that out. And now I know for sure I've actually had these repair estimates done earlier. So I have 19 suppliers who have even given me repair estimates earlier. So what I am looking for is, I need to put in the repair estimates. So it's one way of trying to figure out which suppliers are most suitable based on, just going through unstructured description-based search. I have 6 suppliers who have done repair estimates. Let me check if there are any who have worked on cranes, and there are none actually. So let me look at heavy equipment. So I just type heavy. So there are 3 suppliers. I can apply various other filters based on geography, based on various supplier attributes. But to keep it simple, I have 3 active agreements. These 3 are there that I can use. Let me figure out which one I'd want to go with. So to easily compare them with my requisition line and figuring out what suits best, I could take this action by selecting all the agreement lines. And what happens with that is, okay, it's still working on it.
In the meantime, if anyone has any question, you can always stop Sai and ask your question, or you can post your question in the chat also.
Okay, I'll give it another shot by refreshing the, okay, going back. Yeah, it worked this time. So it lists out the selected agreements, who the supplier is and what agreement numbers that I have. And essentially what it's telling me is that there are two suppliers whose lead time is too high than my need by date. So the lead time is not sufficient. They take 10 or 15 days for the estimate, but there is one supplier who can do it at a higher price than what the customer or the person on the project is expecting, but they can get this done in a day. But this is an urgent requisition, so what I will do is I will just go with this particular supplier and add this agreement line to the document builder. So that way I can quickly dispose this particular requisition out, and I can look at the document builder and create the particular order. So that's the flow. Essentially what this highlights is I can quickly come down to urgent requisitions. I can compare various agreements based on lead time, based on the budget that we have, based on various description based attributes and supplier performance criteria, and figure out the one that suits the situation best. So coming back, I'll move to the next demo, which is simple, which is we have provided a way where requesters, anytime they want, can come and submit feedback to procurement when they see something that's missing or something that could have been done better within the iProcurement system, and how exactly can I use this feedback. So I go back to indirect procurement dashboard, and when there is an open feedback, I can see that here when I remove the existing filters. So there's an open feedback. There are charts to prioritize feedbacks, but because there's only one, I directly go to the feedback area here. All the others are closed. We have one open feedback here, which is what he's saying is the smart TVs are priced higher than marked. Let me look at the details here. So what we use smart TVs for is within the company, we allow smart TVs with webcams to be bought by managers and executives for video conferencing within their conference rooms. And what one of these managers are saying is that the prices that we have of these smart TVs are way higher than the market value. So let me see what's happening with these. What I apply is, let me just look at what catalog content we have about TVs. I just type in TV, and I can see the catalog items for it. And we have a particular agreement for catalog items. Let me also see if anything else is happening here. And when I look at the iExpense spend, by looking at invoice information, which is justification, what I see is a lot of folks are actually buying smart TVs using iExpenses. So they're buying it off Best Buy and expensing it. When I look at my catalog here, I see that the price we are charging is $1,500. But when I go to the iExpense spend, people are expensing it out for about $700 and averaging it out $800. The problem with these is, people buy whichever model they'd like to use, which is a maintenance nightmare. And also we had negotiated extended service contracts with the suppliers that we buy it from, and when people buy it off the shelf, they might not get that service. So what we need to do is, it's indeed correct that the market rate for this item is much better, and we have not essentially been on our toes to figure out the problem. Earlier, there was no way that anybody could have told us that something's going wrong. They would just expense it. But at least now with the feedback method, people can come back to us and tell us that there's something wrong, and if you fix it, we will go back to iProcurement and buy it. So what I can do now is essentially renegotiate this agreement, which actually puts this back onto a negotiation with all the other lines that we have on this agreement, and I can invite suppliers and figure out which are the best prices, and I can go back to the feedback once I do that, and essentially manage this feedback and let the person know by providing a response saying that we have actually renegotiated, we have initiated the renegotiation. Pretty soon you should be able to see newer prices on this particular agreement. So that's one way that you could listen into what the requesters are saying. There could be other situations where they might say that, oh, you have cartridges, printer cartridges from one company but not from the other company. You could listen in and improve the catalog and cater to their needs better. Going to the last demo, which is quite simple in terms of bulk actions that we have provided. One way to demo this is that there has been a hurricane in New York, and the warehouse has been badly affected. We do not know when this warehouse can be brought back to service. So at this point of time, all orders that are going to go to that particular warehouse have to be put on hold. How quickly can I do that? So when I'm back on this dashboard, I can look at purchase orders, filter down by ship to location. Excuse me, just need to remove this filter too. Select New York. I could select more locations if they are affected. And filter down to orders that are open. There are essentially 3 that are open, some are closed. So I select those orders. So I see all these order lines on those 3 orders that are essentially affected. But before I jump in to figure out whether I want to put this on hold, I can see that it's all a single supplier. It's easy to talk to him and figure out what's going wrong. That's easy to find out. And I can also look at which are the affected requisitions. And I could go to the header and say, okay, it's all the same preparer. So it's easy to figure out how many requisitions are affected. I could get in touch with these preparers or the requesters and tell them that we are going to put this on hold. They probably already know the problem. So once I have done all my prep or analysis, I select all of these and take an action, which is to put the order on hold. I could also freeze or cancel shipment. There are multiple actions that we have provided, and these actions are all context sensitive based on the selected records. So that's the 4th flow, and it's an attempt to highlight actions that I can take across multiple records on POs. It doesn't matter how many POs are affected. I could drill down to a particular set of lines for an item that's being shipped and going to arrive in the next 4 days. I would want to cancel it. I could still do that. So those are the 4 demos. And just a small discussion about the value proposition. Essentially, we are trying to address the business needs of shifting from tactical support to delivering strategic partnership by essentially improving how things are done and letting the procurement team spend more time on strategic activities by improving decision making. So essentially, procurement team will be able to prioritize work, discover and resolve problems much faster with a much improved visibility to procurement activities. Uh, the buyers can respond to requests of feedback, and ensure a high level of service, and also align supplier selection based on business priorities. So at a high level, that's the value proposition that we have, and I'd open it up for questions now.
Hey, Sai, this is Mohammed.
Hey, Monal.
Hey, thank you for presenting. This looks excellent. So, question on the last demo that you were showing, it was showing some amounts coming from, it looks like they're coming from payables. Is that correct? And also, how are they used in the context of this demo or the other demos that you covered? Things like overdue amount on the invoice, past due payments, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we are getting some information from AP. We have views within procurement that we have called to get the data from AP. And because these invoices are connected to POs, we were able to get all that information and show it to you on the dashboard.
Okay, and whoever has the responsibility to get to this dashboard, can they take any action on the AP side, or is this information only?
We have visibility into AP, but we don't have actions directly happening on the AP side. So the buyer can look at if there are invoices on hold, etc., but he needs to navigate to that place to figure out if he can release hold. And typically a buyer doesn't release holds. It's either the system that automatically does or the AP folks. So what the attempt here was to give visibility to the buyer on actions happening on the AP side also. So he knows, how the supplier is performing. So he could just filter by the supplier and, okay, he can figure out, oh, there are so many invoices on hold.
Okay, so mostly informational, gives you some context, but you really don't have the ability to take an action as a procurement buyer or somebody who's using this particular interface.
Yeah, I mean, what can be done is, of course, you can always navigate to the purchase order, and from there we allow navigation to the invoice details, and if those pages allow any actions that the buyer is responsible for, those are accessible. But we haven't put any direct actions based on invoicing information directly here. When we see customers asking for it, of course, it's not that difficult to put it in.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So, Sai, this is Anurag here. So, other than purchasing modules in e-business suite, what other modules should customer be having to use procurement command center? I'm asking what is the dependency of procurement command center on other EBS modules?
Essentially, only Oracle purchasing. We have taken care of not to have these other dependencies. If the data is not coming from the other products, they won't just show up here. And they might have to just customize these Endeca pages to remove tabs if they're not using it. But the dependency is only on Oracle purchasing.
Okay. And do you also have integration with flex fields?
I think we could not scope it in. Abhimanyu, can you please help answer that?
No, we scoped that out for V6.
Okay.
But we have UDAs on supplier because we have already done that.
Okay.
And another small bit of information is that this dashboard will come for free to all project procurement customers. So when project procurement is demoed in the future, they could demo these dashboards also along with project procurement.
Yeah, so just for the sales community here, project procurement was introduced in V5 release. That is also a standalone product. And procurement command center, which is part of V6 release, so what Sai is mentioning is will include the project procurement also. But again, we are working on that. We are working with pricing team to find out all the minute details about this, how it's going to work in V6 release, and we will update sales about that.
Got it. Thanks, Anurag.
So, yeah, a follow-up question also on that same topic. I think you guys are positioning this procurement command center similar to how project procurement was positioned, right? Not as an extension, but more as a new product, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now when you were talking about the dependencies and you were saying that this would require just having purchasing as a minimum, right? To be able to take advantage of this. When we start talking to customers about this, because from a I guess an implementation perspective, we also want to be careful, not implying that this is a brand new product implementation that will be complex more than your typical extension installation. So how would you tackle such a question?
I would see, the thing is, if you have Oracle purchasing and you install this Endeca application, there is not much of an implementation step at all. There are just a couple of profiles and the menu privilege configurations. Run the ETLs and you're up and running. There is not much of an integration or additional steps involved to get this done. But I guess for the sales, it would be easier for them to position this to customers who have a wider footprint within procurement, which is if they have purchasing, sourcing, iProcurement, especially iProcurement Endeca, if they are considering that, and they're using AP, of course. So then there would be significant amount of value because we get data from all these areas and we show it up here. But if they are only using Oracle purchasing, I believe the amount of value that they can extract out of this dashboard will be reduced because we don't bring the main capability of the 360-degree view is not available because they don't have the data.
Right, but it's still, I think it's still enough value for people to consider it. I think in a lot of different countries, especially in the Middle East, where EBS is doing very good in general and continues to do good, customers would be more likely using procurement purchasing rather than iProcurement. So mostly all of the procurement requests will happen from professional buyers, not directly by self-service employee interface. So I think this would be great to those who could not take advantage of iProcurement, but now can take advantage iProcurement extension, but now can take advantage of this with the information.
Yes, I agree, Mohan.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nisa.
So any question from the sales community here, any feedback, anything, you can post it on chat or you can unmute yourself and provide feedback to Sai. Okay, Sai, I don't have any question on chat also. I don't see any question on chat to myself, but can you check if somebody is sending question to you directly?
Okay.
If you go all the way in the bottom, you will see chat.
Well, the bottom interface is just not appearing on Anurag. So
no problem.
I don't.
No problem. You would have seen it blinking if someone was sending question to you.
Yeah, no, it's not blinking.
Okay, no problem. All right. So last chance. Any question before we wrap it up?
Or well, you could, if you hear this recording later, feel free to drop me an email anytime. We can discuss.
Sure. Yeah, I will share Sai's email contact also. And if you have any question, if you have any feedback, if you would like to see anything more in whatever Sai demoed, any customer feedback that you have, you want to share with Sai about what they're asking for purchasing extension, that will be really great. So with that, any other closing comments, Sai?
No, well, I guess, I guess I'd want to interact with the SC community to figure out if there are better ways to demo it and how we can work together on setting up the right amount of data to get the charts to be more effective or to drive flows that the customers would want to see. That's really about it.
Okay.
And
great.
Thanks for the time. Thanks for watching this.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Sai. Thanks for presenting today. It was a great demo. And I think procurement team has done a fantastic job of building this procurement command center. And in the demo flow, I also noticed that you have made a really nice use of showing content from the OA region and the Endeca region, combining those two and building a new page which is showing data from OA region as well as Endeca. I would say like great usability thing for our customers that will be able to use something like this going forward. And great promise in Procurement Command Center. Looks really nice. Again, thanks for presenting, and thanks everyone for joining today. I will share the link to this recording, also the PowerPoint that I used to present with everyone, and we'll meet again next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Anurag. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.